Hello, viewers. Teresa wanted me to do the second part, so you're stuck with my ugly mug for this. This, by the way, is a PVC flute, a cross flute that I made with a PVC pipe. But I guess we just kind of want to show you the inside, and Teresa has just spent the first night in this teepee. We've already talked about the ozone. I'm not sure that we have much else to say about that. There's some specifics, you know, about using the landscaping twine. We just kind of improvised knots as we went. We cut little holes along the seam that so far, nearly a year old now, have held up and have not ripped out. Using just these old tablecloths we found in a dump. So this is not the ideal stuff to use. We just used what we found, which is kind of the whole challenge for us. We don't want to buy anything. We want to see what we can create by improvising. And this works great. I don't know if you could pick it up on the camera, but when it does get a little smoky in here, it tends to gather right here at the top of the ozone, which is over your head, so you're almost always under the smoke. We've got a grass mat video that shows how to make these, but Teresa brought this in last night and slept on this, just a bunch of square knots and broom sedge, which is really comfy, and it's really warm in here. It's not a cold day outside right now, but you can feel the difference as you walk in. And I guess the only other thing I'd point out here is, you know, when you do the teepee design, you will have a long string hanging down, which presumably I could see applications for hanging a pot maybe to cook, but most of the time you just kind of tuck it behind the ozone. And these poles, I did not have the ideal kind of poles. Red cedar would be perfect, maybe a hardwood. These are mostly like sycamore, maybe even some sweet gum, soft stuff that you wouldn't generally want to use. And they have weathered quite a bit. You can feel there's cracks in it and everything, but all of them are still holding up really well. And we skinned the bark off to help get rid of some of the moisture, so hopefully it would season and last longer, which appears to have done the trick. So, Teresa, is there anything you want to share about your night in the teepee?
Sure. Do you want to start moving out of the teepee or stay in here?
However you'd like to share your story.
All right. Well, I will just say that I agreed with Gumby to come to the van this morning that's parked in the field where we're normally at 6 a.m. And I got to tell you, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be in here, because my first experience with sleeping out in one of our shelters, I didn't have the ability to just start a fire up anytime I wanted in the night. So last night, I got out here, it was just before 11 o'clock at night, and I started up a fire. It warmed up the space, and I went to sleep. And if you can tell, I mean, I've got like flammable broom sedge and fire. So I wanted to make sure that I wasn't making a big fire and I wasn't going to sleep before the flames were kind of died down. So the door was shut last night. It's open now. And I slept until about 3 in the morning. And I'm not sure if the coyotes woke me up or if I just woke up, because I do that anyway when I'm sleeping in the van. But I stoked up the fire. I actually got the fire started again completely because it's just such a small fire. And went back to sleep until about 6 a.m. And then I joined Gumby this morning, and I feel rested. I didn't feel like I got that cold. It was a mild night, as Gumby said, but when we turned the van on this morning, it was 30 degrees in the field. So it may have been a little warmer in the woods that we're in, temperature regulation. But yeah, my night was pretty decent, and I had sleeping bags, so that helped too.
And a few things before we leave the space.
Sure.
I'm really glad that we've built other shelters that did not have good ventilation.
Yeah.
Because now we don't take that for granted. So when we have a shelter that ventilates this well, this design is an ancient design. Even though we've used modern things like plastic and everything, the design itself, I had no idea how well this worked. It ventilates beautifully, which if you've gotten into survival shelters, you know not to take that for granted. We're not using seasoned wood. We're not cutting logs. This is just stuff we're pulling out of the woods, and even then, it's venting really well. This is a dip from one of our previous shelters that we tore down and kind of built in the same spot. We're going to fill that in. And another idea we have is possibly to make more grass mats and kind of line the whole bottom, push it away from the fire, not right next to it, and maybe have it rolled up a little bit to further insulate the bottom.
Yeah.
And that will create a really nice floor, and to make the fire safer, which will always have a small fire in here, which you can feel it probably only needs a small fire.
Yeah, that fire, that it's dying now, but it is hot in here.
Yeah, we might dig a little pit in here to help it be more protected. But that's kind of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
So anything you... Oh, one more thing you pointed out, Teresa, is a light color inside.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
We just happened, when I put this together, I just happened to grab clear plastic. I wasn't thinking about this, but as it turns out, this creates a light color on the inside, and psychologically, we both think that really makes this a nicer space to have a light color in here. Whereas if the black plastic I used on the outside was on the inside, it'd probably feel kind of oppressive and dark.
Yeah.
Again, that's not based on any experience, so I might try dark colors only to discover, wow, I feel even cozier, but that's our theory right now.
Yeah. I woke up, like, I said about 3 a.m., and just looking up and seeing that clear light color, it just felt really hospitable and inviting in here. And the opening, which we'll get to, we should probably start moving out of here.
Yeah, we got to keep this short because we're going to run out of battery power. Is there anything else you want to talk about while we're in
here?
No,
let's go. Let's go. So basically, that little opening doesn't provide a whole lot of light.
Did you get a good shot of my butt right there?
No, I didn't. Oh. I was trying not
Maybe
to.
We'll do another video.
But yeah, that little sliver of opening there that the smoke comes out of, it doesn't provide a lot of light. So that light color in there is just so important.
And I'll try to go over the highlights really quick of the outside. This is 2 layers of plastic. I cut them together. The shape that you cut, at first when I built a teepee structure, I thought I could just wrap it in plastic and figure it out.
It doesn't work.
No, you need to cut it to a very specific shape for this to work the way it's supposed to. The first one was all smoky. It was uninhabitable.
Should I show it to him now?
What?
The picture.
Let's wait till the end.
Okay.
Because that's abstract.
Right.
So this is 2 layers of plastic. The reason why I used 2 layers wasn't for insulation, although it turns out it does help with that. But it's because these were in such shabby shape. Like, follow me. We got all kinds of holes and stuff in this black plastic. Big one right here.
Yeah.
Big rip. So I just figured if I use 2 layers of plastic just for a first attempt at a teepee, that it would probably, the holes wouldn't line up. And indeed, that seems to be the case. When we came back from the summer of being away at the mountains, it was dry in here. So it's held up really well. The 2 layers worked really well. This is old duct tape. But just scavenge plastic. We intentionally wanted to use junk stuff to see how well it worked. I used the smallest measurements for a teepee, which is why this teepee is so small. Both of us could get in here in an emergency, but it wouldn't be comfy. We'd have a hard time fitting in here. So we're excited about the possibilities, since this works so well, of a bigger design.
Yeah.
Leaving a little bit of space. When I cut the shape, which we'll show you in a minute, I left it a little bit big because it was pretty easy to go around and trim afterwards, whereas if I'd left it short, I couldn't add it. So having the space here allows air to come up between the plastic and the ozone inside the fabric, and that is one of the keys to ventilation of a teepee. So you want a little bit of space on the outside for the air to push it up, the smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Before we did that, it made a big difference. We were just choking inside of our teepee design.
How'd you stake this?
I got pieces of wood. Some of this is cedar. Cut a point on it, hammered it in with a hammer stick. This is landscaping twine I just find along roads and stuff. And this is a sweet gum ball that I reached in and stuck in the plastic, twisted a few times, and grabbed it. Some of them I didn't have enough plastic because it got so tight to grab it well. But like I said, all of them have held up to almost a year now, so apparently well enough.
So it's like a do-it-yourself grommet.
Yeah.
For a piece of plastic that isn't a tarp.
And you want that tension. Right here on this side, it's not working ideal. You would prefer to have it pulled all out like this with space around it, but it seems to be working good enough right now.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I want to point out, is there anything else about the outside you're seeing that I should talk about? Other than the smoke flaps?
No, let's just do the smoke flaps, because it's at almost 10 minutes.
And I do want to point out the sticks up top. That structure, they're kind of in a spiral. There's a very specific way to do that. So if you're playing with the teepee to make one, you can play with whatever you want and see what works. But just know that the way the the natives who we learned it from, this design, it's a very specific way to spiral, and it seems to work beautifully. It's held together not with any like really complex knot, but just a clove hitch and then wrapped around a bunch of times. The simplicity of it is just amazing. And the location. This open smoke flap in the door faces the east, which here in North Carolina puts our back to most of the bad weather that would come and the wind. So for that reason, almost all the rain that does blow in here, we left the smoke flap open all summer because we figured the ventilation was more important than trying to keep the rain out. And almost all the rain either comes straight down and doesn't slide in here much or hits the back of these things. Very rare would it be rain that would come right into the smoke flap.
And then you can always close the smoke flap, which I think is what you're going to demonstrate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the smoke flap, again, 2 grommets, sweet gum grommets, because I didn't have holes or anything. Just tied to 2 long sticks. And as I'm passing through, let me just point out my stitching here. Landscaping twine that I just punched holes in and did a, I believe that's called a running stitch. But just really simple. And then a couple of cross stitches here. But my point is how simple this is. This is the clumsiest kind of stitching with the worst materials, and yet it's working.
Yeah.
So that excites me to the possibilities if I ever did want to invest in money or better materials, or if I spot more materials I can scavenge, how much better it could work if it's already working this well. And the smoke flaps, depending on what the wind's doing and how it's ventilating, you can control. I could put one up here and block the north wind a little bit better if that was a problem. If it was a really bad wind coming from the north and blowing the smoke back down, I could guard against that.
Nice.
If I don't need, like I don't have a fire in there, but I'm still seeking shelter from, let's say, the rain on a summer night, I could just close the smoke flaps all together. Gotta figure out a good design for these. I'll put this down for a second. Whew, and not trip on the video.
Yeah, even if it's just one flap
Yeah.
that's closed, it's now
Yeah, so there we go. It's all closed up.
you would close up your door.